Hello, everyone. It is great to be here, and thank you, Dimitris. Thank you, Kyria Tassoula, for the invitation. I love online conferences, and I think that given what we have been through, this has been a great opportunity for all of us. Starting my own presentation, which is not meant only for managers, I know that from the title it might appear that it is mainly for school owners and directors of studies, but the teaching part is going to become obvious the moment we start exploring the topic. Given my own title, I would like to spend a little bit more time analyzing and giving an overview of what I'm going to say. And I would like to start by focusing on the two adjectives, personal and corporate. So why both? Because individual motivation can account for a number of things up to a point. So if I am motivated on my own, I can sustain my motivation for the first week, the second week of the lockdown. I might not like online teaching, so I might not be at all inclined to teach in that way. At the same time, if I'm not motivated as part of the team, my own teaching and my own definition of the way I'm teaching might be a bit different from what people expect from me or what the rest of the school does in their own online teaching. The second thing is that we need to remember that school owners, and this time I'm focusing on school owners, have dual functionality in Greece. They are not simply the owner, they are not simply the money-making machine. And this lockdown was truly a test in our ingenuity as to how business owners of small businesses would manage to make ends meet and cover the needs of their employees. But also they are teachers themselves, so they have a group waiting for them to act as teachers, not as business people. And they are also the people who can motivate their teachers because they know them as people and they know who they are and what they do. So what I need us to remember is that teachers and managers in a way meet halfway, but we'll explore that later. It's going to be a recurrent pattern. The other discussion that we're going to have throughout today is, can teachers remain motivated when our concept of school has gone? And the other question that I might hear coming is sustainability. Why are we so interested in sustaining motivation? Have we solved the problem of me being motivated? Well, being motivated to stay motivated and stand in this group, holding our responsibility, is simply not enough. So I would like to start sharing my own experiences. We're going to talk a lot about personal experiences. So when we talk about schools, in our mind, what comes is a very specific classroom. Well, I have many specific classrooms. Unfortunately, I'm not going to see this classroom ever again. I don't teach in that school in Britain anymore, but the school is in my heart, as are all classrooms have ever been. There is a whiteboard, there are desks, there are chairs, there is a cabinet with my material, you know, my scissors, my spare papers and glue. There's my computer, and there are obviously lovely learners sitting at their tables. Their eyes mirror my teaching. I look at them and I can see, they need some explanation. They're chatting. I'm losing that side. They're playing. I need to split these. And I'm making mental calculations. Right now, if we were in one of the lovely hotels in Thessaloniki, enjoying a face-to-face on a forum, I would be able to look into your faces and experience pretty much the same thing. Unfortunately, right now, all I can see is chats blinking, but I cannot see any of your faces. And this can be very scary. At the same time, it can be very demotivating because my teaching room, my classroom, was this environment. As you can see, I don't have a green screen. And that's what my classroom looked like, with a lot of little screens with names. Now, these ideas that I've mentioned, the concepts of desks, chairs, proximity, materials, pair work, these are the bones of what constitutes our teaching. They are part and parcel of our work, and they also come into our anticipated problems and our time management, and they are our lesson plan in a way. And also, teaching online from a managerial aspect means that I lose, as a manager, touch with my teachers. I have to struggle to maintain, to stay in touch with my students who are in my class. But how can I get in touch with all the teachers? Management by walking about is gone. I can't hear them, I can't see them. Are they all delivering lessons or some kind of teaching? Because online teaching right now was not a choice. It wasn't the cherry on top. It was our mainstream diet and a staple for all of us. So motivation became an issue because this lockdown wasn't something we were planning to do. Now, you might ask, when on earth do you expect to go into a lockdown that was expected? Hopefully never. But this one caught us unprepared. I don't think that anybody expected something like a 10-week lockdown. And when we are unprepared for a change, we either go headlong into it, and sometimes we dash our hopes and bash our heads, or we are filled with uncertainty and we cannot get started. So when we start, it's too late, or we feel it's too late. At any rate, certainty and motivation, understanding what I'm going to accomplish and actually accomplishing it, are two very important parts of my own motivation. And for teachers and school owners, this lockdown was a great challenge. Part of the challenge was the fact that we had to make a great investment in terms of time, our own technical knowledge. Not everybody was as tech savvy as we are right now. And at the same time, we had no idea when the rewards were coming. And in terms of reward, don't just hear the word money, honey. Try to see the broader picture. And the broader picture could be anything from the response of our students, the comments of our parents, success in exams, whether material would be covered. Because, as mentioned before, this wasn't a choice. This wasn't something that we were doing just for kicks because we wanted to get some kind of competitive advantage. There was absolutely necessary, it was absolutely necessary to take these steps. So apart from the fact that different frontisteria, different foreign language schools had different degrees of preparation and different access to the staff that could help the teachers. For example, foreign language schools do not have IT support, but private εκπαιδευτήρια, private schools have an IT department, universities have an IT department, and this functions as a support both for the DOS and for the teachers. And finally, apart from this isolation that we all felt, I would say that one of the terrible parts of the first weeks of the lockdown and the first lessons was this idea that external factors manage my teaching, and this changes the way I need to plan my lesson. Which were these external factors? Students not being able to join when they should, parents not being fully cooperative, teachers who might have felt that they don't even understand the tool, or poor connectivity from the office. I cannot even begin to describe the changes that have been made in my office alone so that the internet could be accommodated. And yet I keep getting signals of not stable internet still. All of these form new anticipated problems for my teaching. And this constant need for repetition. Miss, your camera got stuck. Miss, can you repeat this? And also, how can I put them in pairs? How can I teach reading? Will they listen? Are they telling me the truth? Can they listen really? Is there a problem or is there not a problem? And the fact is that all these ended up in some very draining sessions that left us headachy and sometimes eager for some human interaction, to lock eyes with our students, to read the classroom. And all of these are very important steps in our teaching and in how we understand our own efficacy. So if we look at schools as systems of interaction, we will see that the cogs do not exist in absentia. Managers are the, let's say, the visionaries. They decide how the school wants to function. They choose the people they want to work with. They draw certain market share and specific profile of parents and learners. They have a saying in how this boat, this ship is run. And then these people interact, managers interact with teachers, but the way managers lead their teachers is in a way a modeling session, not in terms of catwalks, but in terms of actually embodying the behaviors that as managers we want teachers to have towards our student population. And this is the idea of relatedness. We don't simply want teachers to be in our group. We don't simply want students to be in our classroom. We want them to be there, connect with the others, take full responsibility and take full part in what goes on, contribute, and in a way, not simply listen, but also produce, whether they are teachers or students. So what do we need here? We need a supportive environment. And this supportive environment is going to be the glue that is going to become the virtual walls of our school that is now online and doesn't feel very concrete at all. We need someone, we need the manager to motivate, oversee, explain the way the teacher is going to assure students that she can oversee, explain, and be there. Now, you might be asking, well, doesn't that happen in real classrooms and in real schools? Well, yes, there it's perhaps something that we can realize at each other, but now it's easy to lose our connection with other people. So I need to say one thing. There are many reasons why this is a preliminary session, I would say. This is a very new situation for Greece. So whatever I'm saying today is just a preliminary idea of an educator who's been trying very hard to cope with full teaching online. So I'm not planning on sharing answers so much as questions and a sort of sense of relief, but also sense of accomplishment with the whole community of the Greek ELT. So the questions that I'm thinking managers keep the teachers motivated so that they have an excess of their own motivation, which can help to motivate their classes. And finally, which is the billion-dollar question for me, if one of these components is missing, will we manage to have the whole system working? To attempt a preliminary answer to that last question, I'd say yes, but sustainability is not guaranteed. Because as mentioned before, connectedness is very important and relatedness is very important. We don't want people to feel that they're simply boats sailing in the same ocean but not communicating. In that case, teaching becomes more asynchronous than synchronous. I can see that somebody is raising their hand. I'm not sure if I have a question, but I'm not sure if I can interrupt to answer the questions. And I promise I will leave some time in the end to look at questions. So first of all, I would like to start by looking at ourselves. What goes into my own motivation? And this has to do with the online teaching environment. Well, first of all, it depends who I am or how I see myself when I ask this question. We have many roles and each of these roles makes different demands on us. For example, one of the things that goes into what makes me a teacher is a set of beliefs that has to do with my own efficacy, my understanding of the task, but also of what I have to manage. So for example, what happens in our mind is that we always estimate how attainable what we are trying to do is, and how important it is for us. So it's kind of a cost and benefit analysis. If something is highly attainable, but it's not too difficult, very hard to attain it. If I want it badly, really badly, but it's too difficult and far out of my skill zone, I will probably not try it at all, or I won't be convinced to try it hard enough. So you see, my own perception of my abilities has to do with the way I manage my own rhetoric. And this rhetoric is what keeps me motivated. Another term that I like very much is that suggested by Barbara Fredrickson about broaden and build. People who have a positive outlook generally tend to think that even if I cannot do it yet, that magical word, I might be able through practice. And this is very important. In order to goal set, we need to be able to see specifically what we are about to attain, how important it is for us to be able to communicate this clearly to ourselves and to others, and to understand how difficult it is. So the perceived difficulty of the task is very important in the idea of goal setting. And my skills and experience also play a role in that. But as you can see, this is the whole point. My own understanding of what constitutes my goal and what constitutes me as a teacher or as a manager go into my understanding of my own role in that. So this means that I need to be able to communicate with others. And the reason for that, my own ideas might be just fantasies. You see, sometimes people think that they are, the next Miss America, but clearly they are not. Just because I believe something, that doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. Just because I think I've honed my skills in any kind of thing that I try in my life, that doesn't mean that I don't need some kind of external validation. This is not insecurity. This is merely my feedback, the way that we get feedback from the people who receive our services and our teaching. So there is trial and error expected in the whole thing, but through feedback, we manage to understand what is missing. But in order to be able to open ourselves in such kind of criticism, we need acceptance. We need to be in a non-judgmental environment where we are free to express our fears, our insecurities, our inability to cope with certain things. And this is why two things are very important in the management of online teaching. The first is the framework of communication, the progress that we make, not on the problems that we initially encountered, and the emotional intelligence of all. So ensuring corporate motivation is our first step. And this solid framework of support consists, first of all, of chains of communication so that we don't stop speaking to one another. Sometimes the lack of physical contact can lead to forgetting to communicate and therefore to a kind of lack of uniformity in what we provide as services. The fact that we teach from different IP addresses doesn't mean that we do not represent the same school. So uniformity is very important if we still want to maintain our professionalism. Therefore, meetings are essential. Short ones, we do not want to overdo it. People have spent a lot of time, have been spending a lot of time in front of cameras. So we want the whole stuff, but we also want meetings per level, teachers per level, because younger students may be facing different problems. Changes might need to be made in the length of the lesson, depending on the level and the age of the students. We also need to have our mentoring sessions to provide extra support for our experienced teachers who might be very eager to teach but they may not, they may be tech savvy enough, but not confident about their teaching standard because they have just now entered the profession. We also need an action plan because there will be problems. So apart from the action plan, the idea of the action appeals only are tangible steps to how to face those challenges. What are we going to do about students who drop out of the class and then they claim that there were connectivity problems? How are teachers going to reach out to the parents? Should there be meetings per class with the parents to inform them about how their children are coping in this environment? Should we have meetings specifically with the parents of those students who tend to try and escape because they don't like to be put into, under a lot of pressure? And of course, this has an additional benefit because, first of all, as managers, we have an overall idea, an overview of what complaints might be made. Therefore, we already have our replies ready. We have talked to the teachers. We know what is happening. We have a firm hold on the reality of our online school, and we are not what in Greek we call skorpochori. And the second thing is that we have transformed the crisis into a hub for learning. So we are actually modeling, not simply for our teachers, but for the whole world. Look, as an organization, we are still learning. We are learning through this crisis how we can be a better online school. And who knows, perhaps later approach a different kind of clientele and a broader environment. So before I mentioned the need for emotional intelligence, which was one of the components, we mentioned the framework, we mentioned the communication and the emotional intelligence of the leader. The term is by Goldman. Obviously, I found just the term on its own would merit its own session. So the capacity of recognizing our own feelings, so intrapersonal and interpersonal intelligence, those of others, so as to motivate ourselves, manage our emotions in us, and also in our relationships. The lockdown caused a lot of, I would say, pent-up anxiety, uncertainty, and that is the fertile ground, the breeding ground for a situation that causes many negative emotions. All this kind of empathy go together with a kind of social awareness, our ability to read people, which is really hindered when we are looking at a screen, making eye contact with ourselves. So what are those traits that emotionally intelligent leaders possess? They accept others in a non-judgmental way, because in this way they can expect people in their teams to give them the best that they can. They show empathy and they model attitudes. They are honest with their own emotion, and authenticity is very important. They are there and they take the blame when things don't go well. They don't try to finger point to others. They do care about details, but they don't forget the big picture. They remain honest with their own fears and their own emotions, but they choose the context and the way in which to share these. They focus on communication, being supportive, conscientious without micromanaging, and giving space to the team members to breathe. Now, teachers take all these and transfer them in our teaching environment. As online teachers, we need to remember that our students are feeling pretty much as lost as we are feeling without a classroom with bricks and walls around them. So in times of crisis, it's customary to go to the idea of the military attitude. Just do what you're told. But this authoritarian way of running a school, right after a crisis or in the midst of a crisis, doesn't always create the best environment for teachers who might not be so convinced about online teaching to jump on the boat and say, yes, here I am. Perhaps what we need is some more visionary skill, and this idea of how we can follow a leader who doesn't have all his or her questions answered, but at least is there and volunteers to be available and give time to others. So how can I keep myself motivated as a teacher? Well, first of all, we have come to think of motivation as something that happens outside us. We think that the teacher is the subject. Motivate is the verb and the learners are the object. Well, allow me to say that no matter how much we control the situation, to look into the theory of attribution, no matter where we place our locus of causality and how we see motivation, there is one thing that stands out, and this is the most important. We cannot be motivated unless we want to be motivated. And going back to Fredrickson and this idea of broaden and build, the more positive we feel, the more prepared we are, the better this is going to be. So intrinsic factors are sometimes more important than the extrinsic motivation that we get. My personal beliefs and my personal awareness of what I do, my ability to check how well certain things went, and my ability to go back and try to check and change, my interest in exploring aspects of my online teaching, researching, studying, and also planning to see how I can get to know the tool that I'm teaching even better, and to do what organization does, to see this crisis not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity, as something that I can help and develop, because it's not here just as an occasional thing, but here to stay. Online teaching won't go very far. Regarding our students, teachers might ask, do functional group become dysfunctional when they turn online? Not really. The problem is that we might not have to start from scratch, but we still have to reconsider the way we work, because this time around, students who tend to get lost in their thoughts cannot be brought back into the group because very well they are in the room and we can't see them. There are practical things that stand between us and our students. And this can lead to some students feeling that they bear the brunt of what goes on in the online group that we have created. My own findings in this case, authenticity, saying that I'm not sure what is happening right now in the system, but I'll try to find it. I'll let you know. We'll continue. Let's stop now and I'll see you in 5 minutes because I need to check my internet connection. Getting to know my platform and making sure that I'm not using a social media chat room or something, but a conferencing tool, like, for example, Zoom or WebEx or whatever is available, Big Blue Button. My insistence to teach, not to assess. In this environment, the time is not ripe to turn into, how did we check the quiz? I checked the quiz via the activities that we did in a more qualitative way. I did not insist on using quizzes as a way to give grades to our students. And finally, in a supportive environment, I can always reach out and tell my learners and my colleagues, this needs to be done in a different way. We need to change this. So the useful takeaways in my favorite acronyms, using lockdown this time. We need to leave whatever we knew about online teaching behind us, and we need to exhibit flexibility and learn from scratch. Framework and support are very important. We need to collaborate with teachers and students on a personal and group level. Otherwise, we might lose those who do not want to open up in a public forum. We need to know the strengths of our team, and this, as teachers, will help us identify a student that needs extra attention, and as managers, it will help us identify training and the emotional needs of them and turn to them. We need to overcome the attachment to specific styles of managing schools or teaching. The magic of the profession is that we can interchange and play with different styles. And finally, we need to be able to keep trying and think that schools can change, and the idea of walls might not always be there, but at the same time, we can always do better, focusing on progress. So instead of noting down the problems and the limitation, we can focus on the progress that we have made. And the magic word when we talk about motivation is yet. We didn't do it yet, but we are just a step away from doing it. This is my bibliography. A big thanks to the Spiropoulos family and to ELT News for this beautiful organization. And now I'm going to see if I have any open questions. I don't. Um, and I know that we will receive the chat. Thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, you know my email, and I'm always around on social media. So thank you very much, and thank you, Dimitris. This has been a great day.